You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
And we are back with episode 42.
Episode 42, and man, do we have something to start the podcast off with this week. So over at the Legends Poker Room, which is definitely one of the ones we play at the most, I would say you play at by far the most, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's right by my apartment.
Yeah. So it's someone came in with an assault rifle and tried to rob the place. And from what I hear, about like 1:30 in the morning. And man, I tell you what, just an absolute, I guess, good and bad story. The good story is the security guard, then when he, I think, asked for the money, basically wrestles him to the ground and subdues this guy. All the while, this is a loaded gun. It is going off into, like, the wall, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. It was going off right into the wall. And luckily, the security guard, when he grabbed him, he, like, pointed the gun when they were kind of wrestling on the ground. They both were holding the gun, but luckily it was pointed at the wall. And, I mean, it looked like quite a few rounds went off into the wall, right into the brick.
Yeah, it was pretty intense just looking at the video. I can't imagine being there, but I was a pretty amazing feat by someone, which I'm hoping gets more and more run. He does have, what do they call the thing when they...
Oh, a GoFundMe.
A GoFundMe. It is Traylon Robinson. I'm sure if you look at like the website and just look for, Poker at Legends, the story's gonna pop up everywhere, and he'll have the GoFundMe. I donated. It's on my Facebook of Clint Nelson, so you can find it there. But I mean, great to have somebody, put themselves at risk. I mean, a real hero to the poker community.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just a hero in general.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about stepping up. I mean, no hesitation. When you watch the video, that guy came running in, and then that dude was just right on him. I mean, it was, like, we saw the clip, and it's interesting to me is how fast everything happened.
Oh, yeah. It was weird because, like, he came running in not from the front door, right?
Yeah, that was the weird part. Kind of almost near the kitchen in the back.
I mean, I don't know how all of that occurred, but I mean, because I was expecting, like, looking at the video, like, from him coming in from the front door, but yeah, like, coming somewhere in the back somewhere, I don't know.
Maybe there's all speculation because we just have the camera. So, I mean, the only things over there is, like, where the kitchen is. Isn't there a smoking patio back there, too?
Oh, is there? Okay.
I think so.
It's
But yeah, very limited places to come in. I was very surprised to see him coming from the back.
This is going to lead into another topic as well. Because, I mean, this guy really did. I mean, I want the focus to be on, like, Traylon Robinson and him actually, subduing this guy. Because, I mean, you don't see heroic stuff all the time, and that is amazing. Definitely want people to go support him. But poker is gigantic in Texas right now. Probably bigger than anywhere else. I would say, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
We've now had two things, because I think the poker community is going to look and be like, okay, like, this guy is, like, a hero and everything. I do believe that a lot of people outside the poker community will look at it and be like, well, people coming in, armed robbery and everything, that's what happens when you have gambling. And I do think that part is a bad look for... because you could look at it, if you're in the industry, then you can look at it as, well, these places have been underground. If anything, it's way safer than it was, 5 to 10 years ago.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Because I never really played in the underground days, but I know you were around then. How often were there security guards at those games?
They would have security pretty often. But I mean, it was still way more dangerous. I mean, it was just like you see that video we did. I mean, they can't really go to the cops on anything, so they were huge. The places with a bunch of money with huge targets.
Oh, you're talking about there's a clip on YouTube. It's like a Vice clip about New York poker. That's what Clint's referring to. If you're wondering what clip.
Yeah, it was but it was just it's way safer than it ever has been. But from somebody who's never played, who a lot of people might not even know that underground poker even exists in Texas. So I think it's a bad look. On top of this, Dallas, you heard they awarded like everybody licenses for the poker rooms and everything, Texas Card House and all of those over there. And literally they just, after giving it, I think like 2 or 3 months ago, they literally just reverted it and took it back. I would say I don't think people understand that in Texas and poker, it is huge right now, but it's built on a house of cards right now.
Right, which is why, like we always say, we really only, as best we can, support the people who are doing it within the guidelines, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Because any given day, it all could go away. I mean, it's still kind of that's the nature of a gray area.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, it's big enough that I think it would be tougher now than it was at the beginning. But I mean, we saw what happened when they raided Prime and Post Oak. I mean, pretty much every place shut down. There were like 1 or 2 that felt like they were doing it enough by the rules. But yeah, and supporting these ones who are doing it right, it's going to be, like I say, when it's a gray area, if something happens at one of these that are doing it wrong, they get shut down, they get raided, something happens, the poker community will realize, hey, well, that was them. They're doing it wrong, and that's, all that. But people in general are just going to lump poker together.
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, people who just don't know the difference, don't even know what a rake is, a time fee, none of that. All they know is they see poker rooms are shutting down for illegal activity.
Yeah, I mean, because you grew up in a family that, they're okay with gambling and stuff. I grew up around people who don't do it at all, and I can tell you right now, none of them even know what a rake is. Yeah, you're exactly right. Nobody knows what a rake is, so they definitely don't know the difference. So I think this is something that, like in coming elections and everything, the poker community really needs to step up. And I'm not saying, if you're Republican, you vote with your conscience. If you're Democrat, vote with your conscience. But I'll tell you what, I know somebody is more likely to be more accepting of poker, regardless of Republican or Democrat. I mean, it's not the only thing I'm looking for, but it is something I'm looking for in these elections, because this could, as good as this has been, it could be taken away.
No, absolutely. But, I mean, back to the original point, didn't want to take away from the security guard tackling that guy. I mean, absolute hero. But the one thing I thought that was very strange when I watched that video back, the guy who was robbing the place, he went to the front. Obviously, had never been there before, right? I mean,
I had heard from people that he had been there before, that he had played there before.
But hear this out though. Why would he go to the front when we get free entry? Why wouldn't he have gone to the cage?
I thought that was weird too. I have no idea, but I mean,
well, I'm sure that not much thought process going on, but still, I mean, if you've been there, I mean, the money isn't at the front.
But I mean, if that's the process, then I don't know why you would even go that route of going around announcing what you're doing. What I mean, I could also be like, well, why don't you just walk up to the cage and show them a gun and be like, hey, I want all the money right now? Or I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm not sure the guy was super strategy, but I did hear that he had played there before.
I think it was just weird to me that was just the one odd thing, but really that was the good thing that he went to the front, because that's where the security guard is.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing, yeah, is very weird. I mean, like I say, my takeaway from it is such a amazing story about, someone who obviously put their life on the line. But yeah, the whole thing is very, very, very weird.
And it's kind of crazy to think how you just kind of, just when you go play poker so much, I mean, everything has its risks. I mean, you probably grow complacent just going all the time and just not even think about, that there are still lots of risks.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the more you're in an environment, just in general, I feel like you say, you grow complacent over what that environment is. And, and I think especially for like some of us who've been playing like a long time in the underground days and everything, it is safer, but it doesn't mean it's without risk. I mean, obviously there's risk to everything.
Yeah. So I guess we'll move on to some of your sessions, but I guess, if you can go support the GoFundMe.
Yeah, it's so I've been playing at Paramount quite a bit. It's the closest to me. I really like the place. And I like to mix it up, but just Paramount's been the place I've been going to recently. I go in there and, man, end up next to this kind of drunkish, having a good time dude. And definitely not the normal grinder type. He's directly to my left. I'm card dead for a little while. Not a long while. About maybe around an orbit or so.
That's how I know you're running good. I'm card dead. How long? One orbit.
Yeah. Well, I just sat down. So, because that goes into this. It folds, there's like a bunch of limping, and it limps around to me, and I got 4-5 offsuit. And I'm like, well, okay, $2. I don't really want to look like I'm just grinding to no end. I want to be able to get some action. So I go ahead and just make the call.
But how many limpers were there?
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay, I mean, I don't know. I guess, yeah, go ahead. I mean, I was going to say you can kind of justify it, but I don't know. I mean, shoot. You did it, so we'll just hear what happened. Yeah,
justify it by I put $2 in, so that's what it is. I'm not saying it's a great play, but it limped around.
or no, I didn't mean justify. I mean, I wonder if it's the right play to be playing. If there's so much money in there and you're in position,
I think it's. If you're playing by the book correctly, I definitely think it's a fold. But could it be profitable? Yeah, if you have bad enough players and they're going to stack off on everything, then a lot of stuff's profitable. But I make the call. It just small blind completes and big blind checks. It comes 4, 5, 8. Now this is very weird because the kind of drunkish dude bets 30. There's $12 in the pot. Weird enough. Then it comes around and somebody calls, who's actually a pretty decent player. It comes back around to me, and I'm like, I have been running like crap. If I flopped 2 pair to like a set of 8s and they limped, or 6, 7, my day to just goddamn lose. And so I make it 100, thinking that it's probably just going to fold out everybody.
That's what I would think. Yeah, but I like the bet size of 100. I think that's pretty good right there.
Good to hear it. It's a. I bet 100, and the guy tanks for a little bit and ends up making the call. The drunk dude. The other guy folds. The next card's like a queen or something that really doesn't matter at this point. But then he looks at me. He's like, "Well, I'll go all in." I'm like, obviously I call. It's 100, and it's now 100 into a decent sized pot. So he just shows over top pair of 8s, and I show over 2 pair, run it out. It's good. And from then on, it was one of those sessions that just nothing was really hard about it ever. Like, I was flopping really good hands, getting paid off. So I end up cashing out, buying in for 200, cashing out for 930 after time. So that was a nice session when you're on a downswing to kind of have something just kind of go real smoothly for the entire time.
I'm envious.
Yeah. I then go back, and then just it's the complete opposite. I mean, just running like crap. Can't get good hands. When I do get good hands, it's just a complete whiff. Multi-way pots. Nothing is heads up. So I'm in for 200, and like 20 minutes later, I add on for like 60 because I'm already short stacked. Then I bust out. I'm like, well, save my chair. I'm gonna get 200. Go 200 again, and then it ends up. And it just keeps going crappy. So I'm down to like 120 on my second buy-in. 110. It's an Omaha hand. This is gonna be horrible. I have King Queen 10 3. I think it's rainbow too.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Someone makes it's $2. Somebody makes it like 30. I think it must have been straddled to make that raise. I'm just like in fuck it mode. I'm like, I can't hit anything. Whatever. I go ahead and just pot it and shove.
Well, was there another caller after the 30? Probably.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Get called. Just, I mean, you know how Omaha is. Nobody's ever folding anything. Get called by everything. One guy I later heard had pocket aces.
How many people called?
Maybe 4.
I was about to say, because you made it sound like one person called.
No, 4. Like 4 people called.
Yeah.
Now one might have been for less. I don't remember.
But it's definitely not heads up, because that's kind of what I was.
No, definitely not heads up. So the flop comes about as good as I can hope for. Queen 10, like 8. No, okay. It was the Jack 9 was not a straight there. I think it was like Queen 10, like 5 or something. So I'm instantly thinking this is a great flop for me, and there's a flush draw. But I'm like, the chances of this running out and me being good are literally probably almost 0. And it runs out to like make like 8 straights. I don't think the flush gets there. And at the end, I'm like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm like, I have 2 pair and that's it. And everybody at the table looks at 2 pair and they're like, that's good. So that was the amazing poker skill of Clint. Shoving in Omaha with a very suspect hand and getting lucky on that one.
All right, that's when you let Clint's skill took over.
That's just flat out just soul reading at the table.
Did you tell when you scooped it in? The better player won today, guys. the better player won that hand.
Well, it's about to get a lot dirtier. So now I've got a decent stack. I win a couple hands and all that, and I'm rolling fairly decently. I'm probably down because it was a couple buy-ins, but not that much. We do a double board bomb pot on a hand that I have no interest in whatsoever. I mean, it's a horrible. These double board bomb pots are all Omaha, by the way. It's nothing to dream of. I do flop 2 pair on the bottom board. I have 10-3. It's ace 10-3 on there. The top board, there's a flush draw, and I have none of it. So it checks around, I believe. No, I think it's one where it was somebody bet like 10 the entire, and it just kind of inflates everything. And I'm like, well, 2 pair, let's see if, what can happen here. I call. The turn is an 8 on the bottom. Now it's giving my 2 pair to 8-10 instead of 10-3. And giving me more outs for a boat, obviously. And then the turn on the top brings in a gutter straight draw for me. So I still have almost nothing here.
Say, still super speculative.
But in my head, I thought nobody could have. I was thinking I had top 2 pair for some reason, and there was no straight and flush on the bottom board. And I was like, okay, well, I have to be good. I was completely discounting ace 3, ace 8, and ace 10 which are very possible, very likely hands for somebody to have, for that matter. And I go ahead and pot it. And I think it's a bet. I think it might have been like a small bet, and then I pot it. And then only one guy calls. No, it's a 2 people call. And then, you want to talk about bad play being rewarded. I bink the gut shot straight draw, which is second nuts on the top board now. And I hit a 3 for a boat on the bottom board. So, I mean, I'm like, because I kind of realized what I did after I bet. I'm like, because I look back at my hand, I'm like, why in God's name would I do that? And I'm like, that's a horrible play. But once you get there, I had like 130 behind. I'm like, I'm all in. And, of course, one guy calls. One guy was on just a random draw and folds. And, I mean, I show, I'm like, I just hit the shit out of both rivers and scooped this pot with the straight and the boat. But, I mean, you want to talk about just a day where I was not playing my A game and got rewarded for it. It was ridiculous.
God, man, that sounds like... I mean, those peel hands... I mean, I've had that happen to me, too, where it's like you just kind of somehow... Not misread your hand, but just somehow don't process the situation fully, maybe.
Yeah, you just kind of misread the strength, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I've done that one time where I thought I was like... had like the mega nut draw, and then I was like, wait a second, I think I only have a gut shot.
Tyler's like, I got a 20 card wrap. I got a 20 out wrap. Oh wait, never mind. I need a 4.
yeah, that happened to me one time, and I was like, this is not my game.
4 and only a 4. Yeah, it was a. Well, I mean, I guess. Like I say, I mean, I did have a decent hand on bottom. I mean, there was no flush or straight out there, but, I mean, a ton of 2 pairs had me beat. And, I mean, it was definitely a bad bet at that moment, but for whatever reason, I just read it as way stronger. Like, I mean, the minute as I'm looking at it, I was like, oh, God, I mean, this is horrible, actually. I mean, even an ace, even a single ace probably has quite a few outs. I mean, if you have ace, anything over a 10 can make that a bigger 2 pair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Was that all the sessions you played?
That was, yeah. I mean, I did have a small session at a smaller game where I lost 165. But overall, it was actually a pretty profitable week. I ended up, I think, up 950 on one session after time. Up 350 on that session I just told about, and lost 150 on the other. So finally a week where it was at least over $1,000 a week. So that was kind of nice.
And this might be confusing because last episode we talked about you going to Vegas.
That's right.
So just to kind of avoid some confusion, you still haven't gone to Vegas.
No, but I will be soon.
Yeah.
By the time this podcast is out tonight, it won't be tonight, but
later in the week. But we're actually recording earlier in the week, so we didn't miss an episode this week. So Clint's actually reviewing the end of last week where we left off. I was out of town, so I still haven't played a hand. I'm going to play a bunch of poker tonight and tomorrow and Thursday. But that'll be for next episode. So we're kind of recording early in the week. That's why I haven't played any, because I was out of town since last episode, and we haven't. Today's Monday, so
I think that's really good that you are out of town too. Because I mean, like, I know when I'm running bad, there's a lot of times I feel like I go to the table and I'm almost already on tilt before anything happens. And I don't know if that's where you were, but it sure seems like that's where you were getting very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like I should just hand my money to people as I walk in and just leave. Avoid the dealer.
Flashpoint, guys.
Yeah, or just say the dealer at the time of shuffling.
So I think it's that break came at a good time for you. And like I say, I mean, I'm literally in the clothes I'm about to wear, and I am packed. And the minute we finish this podcast, I will be heading to the airport to go to Vegas. So hoping to make some good things happen there.
I'm actually thinking about going to Prime today.
I just can't. I mean, this is going to go into like the Daniel Negreanu, like more rake is better type thing.
Okay, so we'll say it here. Clint says more rake is better.
More rake, better. No, but like it doesn't get as much action because it is the $12 an hour versus a 10. But me and you were talking, and there's a certain point that $2 doesn't matter in the long run, yes, but the last several times I've been at Prime, I've just been at a table where someone is just gift wrapping money. I mean, not I'm saying I've been profitable every time. I mean, a lot of times they were just, on fire and were hitting, but it was just a great game. And I kind of wonder if it just keeps those real tight grinders away, and it makes for a better game sometimes. Because, like, the $2 an hour, not huge in the long run, but if it keeps the better players away to a certain degree, and you've got these players who just don't give a crap, they just want to go and have a good time. I don't know. I mean, I've been very impressed by the games I've been getting in at Prime lately.
No, absolutely. I'm thinking I agree. I've had the same experience at Prime. I think Prime kind of lends itself, though, like the environment to, like, if someone wants to come in and have a good time, it's very possible there with the big bar and, all the TVs. You can kind of sit down, play pool, a lot of drinks, pretty good food. I mean, I really think if you're there to have a good time and you have, more money to spend, because I would say Paramount's a really good time if you just want to go have fun with friends. But,
yeah.
I mean...
Well, Paramount would be another place where, the games are pretty good, too. I mean, these places that kind of lend itself to having a good just being more... Like, when you go to Legends, the only thing you think about is poker. But you go to Paramount, you think about, like, all the TVs there, the pool tables, the pinball machines. It's just a real laid-back environment. Prime is, like, it's not like Paramount. It's, like, the upscale niceness. But, yeah, I completely agree with that theory.
Yeah, so I'm thinking Prime today. Anything can change between now and then, but and then I'm actually before we move into that was all your sessions this week.
Yeah, that's it. I'm caught up at this point, so
okay, so I'll keep going then. Yeah. So, and I'm actually planning on going to Texas Card House on Tuesday.
Right.
And as you know, we have a friend who, I don't know how he got into poker. I mean, maybe he just heard us talking about it and then watched some. Sounds like he's been watching videos by himself too on poker, watching stuff on TV.
Right.
And has really got an interest in it. And he says he wants to play. So I told him I'll meet him there and, it'd be his first time playing live poker.
That's interesting because, it's so hard for me to think back to. I remember the first time I played, I think, live for money poker was at Isla Capri, because that was the only place to play back in the day without going to, like, the underground rooms. And I remember being so damn nervous at the table when I first started playing there.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think my first time playing, I'm sure I played at a casino, but then I played a tournament. I remember I was in the big blind versus small blind, and the small blind called the big blind. I just mucked.
I was like, no, none of that.
Yeah, I had like 8-3 offsuit and just folded, and then he took the big blind. I didn't even know what happened. I was like, nah, I wasn't playing that.
Yeah, I was like, that's a show of strength. I don't want to deal with this.
So, but what I was going to say, we can reminisce about some of the times when we first started, but what would be some of the advice you would give? Because, I know you gave them some advice, but maybe just some of the listeners who might also have a friend or friends who might have some interest in going to play poker. What would be some things that you would tell them? Because you can't go over too much detailed strategy because, when we were talking to them, you have to really get some hours in before you can start breaking down some hands. So, like, if you could give them, not like those blackjack basic strategy cards.
Yeah.
What would be your poker version of it?
Well, I think the best advice is just play tight. I think is the big one.
Here's the other problem. A lot of players don't even know what playing tight is. That means, you can tell them that, and I've seen new players at the table think that King Jack all in pre-flop is good. That is tight.
Well, yeah, that's a. So I mean, what I usually tell, and this is going to be too loose for a lot of people's standards here. I already know, trust me. Had these conversations with people, but okay, if it's too tight to the point where they're just going to sit there and watch and just fold hands for an hour and a half, they're probably not going to want to come back. What I'll usually say is, if the cards add up to 20 in blackjack, go ahead and play them, or 19 if they're suited. Play all your pocket pairs. Play all your suited aces. And if they're suited connectors, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, not suited one gappers or anything like that, but just suited connectors. Then I say go ahead and play those. That ends up being just a little over 20% of hands. It's like 22, 23%. You're folding most of the time still.
Did you say suited aces? I don't remember if
Suited
you did.
aces, yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
But the big thing is these hands are fairly easy to play. Because, I mean, if you're a low pocket pair, if you don't hit, I mean, granted, me and you do not play them this way, but as a beginner, I think, just set mine. If you hit, then pile money in there. If you don't, fold.
That is kind of how I play it.
Well, that's...
I was like, I don't know how you think I play it. I mean, I don't do the opposite.
Every now and then I'll raise and a more aggressive action, but yeah, that's... Well, I mean, it's not a wrong way to play either. I mean, if you're getting odds to... I mean, especially in Texas where you get great odds to set mine a lot, definitely not wrong.
Just was weird. This is not how you and I play it, but this is what I tell them. Hit a set, put money in. I was like, oh, that's how I try to play them.
Tyler's like, I definitely don't try to hit a set and fold.
Yeah.
Then you have all the Broadway cards, which is going to be the majority of hands that you're playing. And if you're in there with top pair and the blinds are, I mean, and you are 100 times the blind, I mean, if you're not just super deep stacked, you're pretty okay going. I mean, you can only go so wrong with this hand, especially in Texas, where people are just chasing draws to no end and all of that. So these are just very easy hands to play. Now, I'm not saying they're going to make them a winner, but they'll give somebody a chance to win. While I think playing enough hands that it's just not like, oh God, how can you do this?
Well, I mean, I think that's great advice because you see a lot of new players playing stuff like Jack 5 offsuit and stuff like that.
Right.
At least that gives you kind of some framework.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're not just, you're either playing hands with at least good potential or that are fairly easy to hit top pair bet.
It's kind of funny because you're like, I can't guarantee you're going to win. It's like, matter of fact, you're probably not going to win. But we can, I mean, at least you have a better chance.
Yeah. So, I mean, it gives you that framework. Like you say, but like the hard part is, like after the flop, explaining like bet sizing. And like, just like, okay, that vlog we watched the other day. I mean, the guy hits top pair. There's $11 in the pot. He bets the pot for 10 or 11. Guy goes all in for like 120, and he calls with top pair. Not even great kicker.
Yeah, 10 kicker.
Yeah, so it was. I mean, explaining that you shouldn't do that is a little bit harder. Like the bet sizing and stuff is a little bit more nuanced. But at least if somebody has a good pre-flop strategy, it puts them on the right path.
Right, and just anything can happen from there. You can go down all sorts of paths. But I always thought that was great advice, though.
I'm glad, because, I mean, I like to grow the game and like to see people do it. Because, I mean, I think it's a very fun hobby to have. Not everybody's going to be profitable. But if you play it right, it's also not going to be super expensive either.
I mean, and if you just play responsibly out of money that you know you're going to lose and you go there to have a good time, you can have a great time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, a lot of my family is like, just poker, you could never make money, regardless of what I say. And at this point, I've just quit arguing that I do. I'm like, well, you're going to pay for entertainment somewhere, whether it's golf, whether it's fishing, whether it's something. I mean, so I'm like, this is just the money I use.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, too, is it's always kind of weird to try to explain to, like, new players how, like, the dealer will make the change for you and stuff.
I was trying to explain that to him because I constantly see like you'll see new players at the table and they'll be like putting money and they're like putting it back like if the dealer takes it like they're just gonna lose $5 instead of the $3. I'm like, because I see that a lot at places like especially that are very like new player friendly like Paramount. I see that all the time.
Well, and the other one I forgot to tell him is stack your chips in stacks of 20. It's always
That's
so
true.
awkward whenever you see someone with like 30 stacks of 10.
That's true. That is a good point.
Just all around them, just little tiny stacks everywhere.
But yeah, so I'm hoping he has a good. Like I say, I hope he has a good time and enjoys it because, like I say, I think it's just a really, really great fun hobby to have. So, well, I mean, I would say this is the other advice I give for new players is, I always say cash is better in the long run, by far, but you do get more play for your money in a tournament at the very beginning. Like the rake's high and you're not going to beat that tournament, but you're definitely going to get more play for your money in a tournament.
Well, and you can find a lot cheaper tournaments.
Exactly. So I think people should start out on tournaments, get used to the betting, get used to the bet sizing, get used to having different stack size, whether you have 100 or 50 big blinds. Get used to feeling like how top pair is good or if it's not good. And then as you get better at those, because you might win. I mean, you're going to win some. You're probably not going to be super profitable. But start there and then kind of slowly move to cash, I think, is usually the better route to go.
But how many people like to do that?
I mean, I've seen a lot, but then I've seen a lot that just seem to have no interest in that and want to go on the cash game streets.
Seems like, I mean, everyone that we've tried to get in recently wanted nothing to do with, they did the tournaments, but just wanted to do cash.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, like, you can do that, but I feel like at least, I mean, even if it's 4 or 5 times, give the tournament a deal. So you just get used to messing with the chips. Get used to, the rules of it, you putting money out or, one chip's a call. Instead, just all the random little stuff that, will kind of throw players at the beginning.
And I guess we'll close out on this, just kind of a little topic. When I was starting off, I mean, the advice I wish I had was how much money to buy in for.
How much money to buy? Oh, yeah, I mean...
Because I would play 1-3, but I'd just buy them for $100.
I don't... This is kind of a tough one. I think... I mean, we always say 100 times the blind, but there's a lot of people that's just really tough. I mean, this kind of goes back to my thing on tournaments, is you can buy in for 100 and have chips to play, have 100, like 100 big blinds and stuff.
Oh, I mean, when I was buying in for 100, I was in school, not working, so I really couldn't buy them for much more.
Yeah, I mean,
that was kind of the casino money when I would go.
Well, and I don't think, especially for a beginner, I don't think short stacking is really a bad play.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, once I started buying it for 150, I immediately started seeing better results.
Yeah.
Buying for 200, I was like, oh wow, can really do some stuff. But I didn't know until I tried it.
Well, because this is tough. I mean, like when players are short stack, your edge kind of becomes. If you're a better player, your edge becomes way less. Because if you're both 300 big blinds deep, and they're going to stack off with top pair for 300 big blinds, huge edge there. But if they got $60 in a 1-3 game, guess what? If they stack off with top pair, that's exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's true. But I just thought that was good. I mean, all that was good advice, and just some things. If anyone listening has friends trying to get into it, that's some stuff that you could either tell them. God, you could even tell them to skip to the end of this podcast to listen. But
yeah, true. Good point.
But yeah, I guess we'll be back next week with. I'll finally have played one hand of poker.
And I'll have been back from Vegas, so we'll let you know how that trip goes.
All right. On that note, we'll conclude this episode of the Texas Poker Podcast. That was episode 42. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.